Hey y'all,
What's going on, guys?
I'm Jay,
And I'm Chris the Bird Nerd.
and we are the
The
Bird
Bird
Brains.
Brains. Cheers. You need to get your mug out,
Cheers.
dude.
I do need to go get my mug. It's all the way downstairs, and I'm tired.
It's okay. It is a lot later for you than it is for me right now. So,
That's true. That's true. Everyone always asks me, how do I have time to do all this stuff? And it's the answer is very easy.
yep,
I do not sleep. That is the
yep.
solution.
You're always sacrificing something, and it's
There you
usually
go.
sleep.
I'll sleep when I'm dead, which
Yeah,
could
right.
possibly be soon at this rate.
Yeah, we're just shaving years off your life every time we do a podcast
Yeah,
episode.
the birds are bringing it back. The birds. I saw a thing recently that says specifically like holding animals, and even more specifically, like certain animals, like birds, are one that lower your blood pressure.
Okay.
And my aviary is for me. It's a Zen
Yeah.
place. It's where
Yeah.
I go to think about life and relax. So even
You
if I'm
know,
cleaning it, that's relaxing for me.
It's funny you say that. So today, so my wife's out this weekend. She's doing a girls' trip, and so I'm daddy and working, and doing podcasts all at the same time. It's been a crazy weekend, and today was filled with soccer games and friends over at the house and cousins coming over, and within that, I'm trying to find a time to hurry and go feed the birds, right? And I get out there and I'm kind of going crazy and just trying to get get the birds fed, get their egg food, and just rush out, and I'm standing inside my one of my the aviary that Mikey's in, and I'm dishing out the egg food, and all of a sudden I feel him just plop right on my head, which he usually doesn't jump on me. He waits for me to pick him up. He's a very, I guess you could say, he's got some good manners that way, and so
Old enough to know.
yeah,
Yeah.
it startled me a little bit, and I was like, was that a Bork? But it was heavy, I was like, oh, is that Mikey? And so I put my hand up there, and I don't know, it was like one of those, Jay, like I think he sensed that I was, in a hurry, kind of a little stressed, and he just like snuggled right up to me, put his head down, wanting me to scratch him. And so I just sat there for 5 minutes and just played with him. And I was like, thanks, dude. Like, I needed that Zen moment. Put him back up. He went and ate his egg food, and I zipped out, So it was nice.
That is cool. Yeah, he probably does know. I mean, they're smart, right? He probably
Yeah.
does know. I explain to people all the time how smart they are, and they can't believe it.
Yeah.
I'm telling them Einstein's about the same as like a 12-year-old, and they're like, "No way." I'm like, "Oh, I promise you." Like
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, he. It was funny. Einstein, when I was cleaning the cages the other day. He's not a seed bird. He's not a seed
Mhm.
parrot, but he does like seeds, and they're a treat for him. Like
Yeah.
I'll give him black sunflower seeds
Yeah.
as like a treat if I'm when I'm harness training him and things like that. He likes them a lot. He just can't have too many or it's bad for him. But a lot of times when I'm cleaning the aviary, I'll just open his cage door. Like if I'm in there hanging out and let him. Normally, what he does is he gets out and comes up to the top and just sits up on top of his cage and watches me. Um, but I so I like did some stuff, went to go get to my supply closet to get more stuff, and came back and he wasn't on top of his cage. He wasn't in his cage. I was like, where'd he go? And he was over. I had taken the cockatiel food down to clean their cage, and he had gone over and was picking all the seeds he liked out of it. And it was absolutely, he had that in his brain that looks pretty good over there. And the minute he wasn't supervised, he's like, well, don't mind if I do. And
Yep. It's
got
like
right over there.
I've got a
And
30-second window. Let's bolt and get
right,
as many seeds as I
right.
can.
Mission Impossible Einstein. That's exactly right. So yeah, and then he knows which bin the parrot food is in,
Hmm.
and like the seed for the seed parrots is in, and he'll go over and try to open it and stuff like that. So they're much smarter than a lot of
Yeah.
people give him credit for.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, so Mikey probably was just giving you some love.
He was and it helped me out quite a bit. I was like, thanks, dude. It's funny when you talk about Einstein. It reminded me of a story. So we used to have a green cheek pineapple conure. Kind of like Einstein. He was our house pet, and
Hmm.
he his guilty pleasure was Frosted Flakes, the cereal,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
Einstein's is potato chips, but yeah.
he would go berserk, and he we kept his cage in like a room in the kind of like the corner of the house, like he was far away from our kitchen. Every time we would open up that frosted flake, if he was in his cage, he'd start squawking. If he was out of his cage, he was flying in, landing on the table, going straight to your bowl. And
Helping himself.
it was like a man on a mission. If you tried to like push him away, he would be like, like don't touch me, just give me my frosted flakes, and then he was happy. It was pretty funny, but yeah, that was his guilty pleasure.
Yeah, that is funny. Yeah, every bird. Einstein really, I think I've told you this before, really likes Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
And I don't typically let him eat it, but he's pretty aggressive about. I'm like, Einstein, this is chicken. Like you're an animal.
You're eating your own kind, man.
Yeah, it's so funny. And I feel, so I love fried chicken of all kinds, especially chicken wings. It's my favorite food. And
Nice.
if anytime I'm eating, so I'll go pick up birds or whatever, and anytime I'm on any kind of bird trip, and I get like Zaxby's, which I don't think you have that in Utah, but it's like
We
fried
do
chicken.
we do have
Oh,
that,
you do
yes.
have them? Oh, I
Delish, yes.
forgot. I forgot. There's a bunch in the southeast, and then because it started in Georgia, it started in Athens,
Uh-huh.
but it's also randomly in Utah of all places. The owners must have a house there or something.
Yeah, I think we've got
But
like two or three throughout the state, but we actually have
that,
one in Orem. So yeah.
oh, really? Yeah, they have a
Yes.
map in some of them where it shows all the locations, and I forgot they're randomly in Utah. But
Yeah.
I'll like be eating this chicken, and then I'll look over, and the birds are looking at me, and I'm like, Sorry, guys, this isn't what it looks like. You're
Yeah.
not next."
I love it.
But yeah, no, that's funny. All right, well, speaking of bird trips, speaking of new birds,
Yes.
today, what are we going to talk about?
So I think we're gonna hit up the quarantine topics. We've had quite a few people reaching out, and we felt like it was a good time. It's springtime. People are buying birds, bringing them home. And we just gave each other some new birds this last week, and I think the most important thing that you can do to your birds when you first get them is to quarantine them. And I would recommend, or we're going to recommend a few steps that we follow when we quarantine our birds. And really the purpose is for the safety of the new birds you got and for the safety of the birds that you currently have, and making sure that you're maintaining that level of healthiness and safety. And so we've had quite a few questions come through lately on what do we do for our quarantine? How do we do it? So we're going to address that. And Jay, maybe we can start off with what is your first steps day one? You go buy a new bird, or you get a new shipment of birds that you bring back to your house. What's the first thing that you do with them?
Well, so I'll take it even one step further. So the very first thing I do is I try very hard not to bring sick birds home.
Yes.
So when I'm at that bird show or doing the trade or whatever it is, I'm looking at a few key things on birds. I know we've talked about this before, but I'll talk about it again. Um, I'm looking for a clean vent. I'm looking for good feather condition, and that doesn't mean not molting, and it doesn't mean not like what I've heard called like travel damage. So a lot of times if you have
Yeah.
birds that have shipped or been in a small cage at the store, they'll have some broken feathers or they'll have a random feather sticking up.
Hmm.
That doesn't actually concern me. What I'm looking for is the feathers, look good, that everything's connected. There's not weird discoloration like feather barring, like if birds have had
Yes.
malnutrition issues, that'll show in their feathers. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm looking for bright eyed, so like round, open eyes, healthy looking eyes, no crust on the eye, and then a good weight.
Yeah.
Looking for a bird that doesn't have like a visible keel bone, which is like their breastbone right here. I'm looking for a healthy bird. So
I would even
that
put in
being,
their nostrils, looking at make sure they don't have
yeah,
any discharge in their nostrils, or like the feathers right by their nose. If they're wet, sometimes they could have like taken a bath or just gotten a drink, and sometimes that does get them wet. But overall, that could also be an indication that they have, maybe like a sinus infection or something like that.
right, yeah, okay. And that's a good one too. I mean, anything. and another big one we didn't talk about, no, not lethargic, right? So
Yeah.
sleeping, like if you're at a bird show, the bird should all be up and active. That's a big, exciting, crazy thing. If you have a bird that's sleeping in a cage, a small display cage with 20 other birds, like that's a bad sign.
Yeah.
So I do all that, and then I bring birds home that I hope are healthy, and that all of that doesn't guarantee you're not going to get a sick bird. Birds, the vast majority of the birds, certainly all the birds we keep, are more prey than they are predator, which means more things eat them than they eat things, right?
Hmm.
So you've heard this on any nature documentary you've ever listened to. When lions are hunting zebras, right? They don't look for the biggest, strongest, healthiest zebra. They look for the sick one or the old one or the baby at the back of the herd that's
Yeah.
easier to take care of. So birds are smart, like we just talked about, and they hide their illness sometimes exceptionally well. I've had birds that look totally fine be dead in 6 hours. So,
Canaries are one of those.
yeah, I mean, most of really all your ornamental birds are going to really hide it as long as they can. So, you might get a bird that looks totally great, and then you get him there, he gets relaxed, he's not at the bird show or whatever it is anymore, and all of a sudden he's sick. So, and we, by the time people watch this episode, they will hopefully have listened to our Heartbreakers episode,
Yes. Yes.
which we recorded last week. And I've learned this lesson the hard way. I've lost a lot of birds from one sick bird. So the first thing I do is I have a cage pre-set up, separate and isolated from my existing cages. And what I mean by isolated is now they're in the same room, but they have like a solid divider between them. They're apart. They're not going to be able to breathe on other birds, scatter poop or seed in on other birds, that kind of thing. No vector for disease transmission. I'm also going to touch them last before a hand washing, if that makes sense. So, like in the morning right now, my new birds are getting egg food. So are all my old birds that I've already had. So when I do the egg food, I do all the feeding for everybody else, and then I do the new birds last, so that I'm not taking germs from the new birds and putting them with the existing birds. Um, Day one, I do a scat treatment, which is for air sac and scaly mites. I'll also do a feather mite treatment, like a spray mite treatment, and then I'll usually put like Hari Prime or Thrive or Nectin Q in their water, and that's beefing up their immune system in order to kind of help them get settled, healthy. And then I do have two different medicines that I always run on new birds. One is Ronnie Vet, which we've talked
Hmm.
about in the sick bird episode, but that's for protozoal diseases, which can come out more with stress, which going somewhere new, going through the bird show process or whatever, stressful for your birds, the road trip, all that. And then I do a dewormer. I have a couple different ones I like. I kind of rotate them so I don't get a resistance. Right now, for these birds, I'll use MoxieVet. The next birds, I might use Avian Insect Liquidator. There's several really good products on the market. Ivermectin. I mean, there's a bunch of different ways to do it, but to me, those are the three big. So I want to do something
Yeah.
for air sac and scaly mites. I want to do something for proazodal illnesses, and then I want to do a dewormer.
Yep.
Um, I think as long as you hit all three of those, you're generally in good shape. The other big thing I'm doing is observing the birds for that period. Now, my quarantine period is always 3 weeks because scat treatments, to do scat correctly, you have to treat once and then treat again exactly 21 days later,
Yep.
because that is the life cycle of the mite. So you do your scat that kills all the adult all the adult mites right the day when the eggs hatch, which is day 21. You do it again, take out the next generation, and then they're done. Um, so in between that, you have Ronnie Vet, which is a week, and then you have Moxie Vet or whichever. The dewormers are usually 24 hours.
Yep.
I'll also do Clay Cal in there to help build their gut health, their kidney health, which is it's a bentonite clay supplement that helps. It's kind of like a probiotic, digestive aid, um, immune system strengthener and a calcium supplement all in one. So they
I
got
don't think
that
I've
today.
I don't think I've ever heard of the clay cow. I've heard of everything else, but the clay cow I haven't heard.
Yeah, so it's a Hari product. It's so the wild behavior is called geophagy. If I'm pronouncing that wrong, I'm sorry. It's geophagous behavior. So birds do it in the wild. They'll go to clay to like a salt lick type thing and eat clay from time to time, and it helps
Yeah,
digestion, kidney function, liver function. It's This is a very layman's explanation of it. I'm by no means a bird scientist, but it's got a like a neutron or proton charge to it, so it collects things in their gut and pulls out the bad stuff, helps their gut lining. It works kind of like a super probiotic. Also has calcium in it, a bunch of other things, nutrients that birds need. So I generally give my birds clay cal about once a week. The downside to clay cal is it will negate medicine also. So like if you have birds on antibiotics, for example, and you give them clay cal, it'll pull the antibiotics out also. So
yeah,
try to do that before and then after medical treatments to
yeah,
help them. So I'm strengthening them before the treatment, and then I'll do it again after to help them get back to normal. Um, and as long as in that 3 week period, I don't see anything that concerns me, on day 21, I'll scat them and they're going into the aviary. If I do see something that concerns me, the first thing I'm going to do by default is just keep them quarantined longer, right? In the grand scheme of the years that I'm going to have this bird, a couple extra weeks of observation is well worth it, no matter how impatient you get. And then based on what I see, I might start down the diagnosing rabbit hole, which we covered in our sick bird episode. And what about you?
yeah. I think almost identical, except the clay cow is the only thing that I don't use in what you've mentioned, and I think the biggest thing that I want to put emphasis on is that time period. I would say a minimum of 3 weeks, right? Because if you're giving these birds these different treatments, one, the treatments they're stressful on the birds, right? The birds already came from, traveling or, from the pet store, wherever they came from the bird show, they're already stressed in that. But then on top of that, we're giving them these medications that puts a lot more stress on their bodies, so
Yeah.
making sure that they are in that environment for the minimum 3 weeks. I usually try to shoot for 4 weeks just because that last week is like a grace period week of if they're not showing any signs and symptoms, I'm giving them one more week to just settle and, no medications, no nothing, just, okay, this is your new home, this is your new environment, this is the water you're going to be drinking for the rest of your life and the seeds, and then kicking them out into the birds. I think many times people just get really excited. I even get excited.
It's hard.
Times,
It's
I
hard.
have times where I'm like, hey, the mate that I have that you're going to go with is ready to breed. And I'm looking at my clock and the calendar saying, man, I wish these days would just pass by. And there's been times we covered it in the heartbreaking podcast. There's been times I didn't follow that and it's come back to bit me in the butt sometimes. There's other times that it hasn't, right? The birds have been fine, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. And, if that means holding the birds off for another couple weeks just to ensure that everything's okay, especially some of these birds are paying a lot of money for, I would err on the side of caution. And so, yeah, just that timeline, making sure the birds are healthy, looking at all the signs that Jay talked about, observing them every day. If they start to become lethargic, and you've got multiple birds there in quarantine, sometimes I even pull that bird out and provide some additional heat and let them be by themselves. That sometimes can help as well. So just really looking at them, assessing them every day. If everything seems normal, yeah, give them that 3. I do 4 weeks, and kick them out to the birds after they've passed all their tests medically and physically,
Yeah.
and let them go be free. And so but yeah, it is really important, and this is for all species of birds, right? Down to your
Yeah.
tiny finches, the waxbills, all the way up to your macaws, right? If you've got big huge hookbills, it is very important to follow that quarantine process just to ensure It's like your kids go to day one of school. You can expect in 2 to 3 weeks someone in your family is going to be sick, right? Because now they're exposing themselves to however many different types of germs and bacterias, and they come and bring it back to the family, right? No different from a bird that you're bringing from another environment and sticking them straight into a new environment. Whatever they came from, they're going to bring it and give it to your birds, or whatever your birds have, they're going to bring it and give it to that new bird, and it doesn't have a chance to build up that immune system, and ends up dying or getting really sick, and then it puts you back even further if you're expecting to breed this bird or whatnot. So yeah, play it safe. Use those medications that Jay recommended and the timelines of those medications. It really will help your birds and set them up for success, and then hopefully in the after that, you got a nice healthy bird that you can let go with all the others, and then you get to enjoy them and watch them, even though it's hard to wait for those 3 to 4 weeks to come by.
Right. And I mean, look, if I could give any bird keeper, new bird keeper, if I only was allowed one word of advice, the word would be patience.
Yes.
I have,
I don't have any.
yeah, I get it. I mean, I've learned this lesson the hard way, right? The, I have never regretted taking extra time to make sure everybody was okay.
Yes.
I have more than once severely regretted cutting a corner on quarantine. It's not something I always did. It is now something I never wouldn't do.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
mean, yeah,
Yep.
I've put a lot of work, a lot of effort, like we've talked about in previous episodes, I'm the steward of these birds. I'm
Yeah.
lucky enough to get to be their owner, and I owe it to them to do that right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Play it safe. Even if you know the bird, it's a reputable bird breeder. I know
We're
Jay very well, right? His birds are in quarantine right now. I've given him the exact medications. Well, not all of them yet, right? Because we just barely
right.
got them, but started them on those exact medications that Jay had spoke about. Not because I don't trust him, but because I want to ensure the health and safety of the birds he sent me, but also my birds too, right? And make sure that we're not bringing anything new to the flock, and being okay that way. So
Yeah, exactly. Same thing. I know your birds are great. I know they're healthy. Doesn't matter. Quarantining them, it's just, better safe than sorry, right? It sounds cliche, but I've learned the hardest way that it's worth it. Um,
absolutely,
and so that's what I do. All
yeah,
right.
I love it.
Well, if you have questions, comment below, shoot us a DM. You
Yeah,
can find, go
or
ahead.
I was gonna say, Jay, even if you guys have, like Jay just spoke about that clay cow, I haven't ever heard of that, and I think that's great advice, and I want to go out and get it now. If you guys have a different kind of medication that you use and you feel like is really valuable during that quarantine period, and we're just really focusing on that quarantine period, right? I know there's so many other medications out there, and we're trying to be broad and generalized in that quarantine, right? To try and reach many different bacterias and infections. But if you have something, drop it down in the comment. We'd love to hear what you use, or these different types of medications, and if that's something that we may want to incorporate in the future in our quarantine process. So yeah, let us
Absolutely.
know.
I'm always ready to learn something. And, um, you know, if you have a question, you can DM us, you can get in touch with
Yes.
us. There's other good people out there that are really smart about it. I do have most of this stuff that we talked about today in my Amazon store. If you're looking and you can't find it somewhere else, I don't know what the commission is, but I do get some amount of money if you buy from my store. So that's great. You don't have to at all. I don't know what it is. It's
You,
not
you,
significant, but
you get a few pennies. Add that to your next bird you want to buy. So
right, exactly. But I really have it. I really have that store set up not for me to make money, but for people to be able to find things I talking about easier. I mean,
absolutely.
if you got questions, you can find Chris and I. Chris is some combination of the bird nerd on everything.
Yes.
He's on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I think that's
Yeah.
it
Those
for
are the
you,
main.
right?
Yeah, those are the main platforms that I play around with.
And I'm on the Javiary, or the underscore Javiary. I'm on all those platforms. So YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. I'm on Reddit. I'm on Threads. If you got a question, or a concern, hit us up. If you have a bird that you think is dying, a YouTube comment is not how to solve that. Take it to the vet. If you don't have a
Yeah.
vet, try to reach out to us. We also have a podcast, and I know at least you have a video. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if I actually have a how to treat sick birds video, but we have the podcast episode. So there's really great resources there. We want to help. Reach out, ask us questions, get down in the comments below, mix it up. And I
Yes,
think that's
please.
all I've got.
Yeah. Hit it on the head, Jay.
All right. Well, we'll catch you all on the next one.
See you guys. Thank you.